Good morning, everybody. And I always say good morning, and people always push back. It may not be morning where they are listening, so just pretend because it's morning someplace. So, as we talked about in the introduction, Barb Monson is here, and she a powerful author and speaker, and a great writer of information. We're going to have her share with you a little bit later about where to go to her LinkedIn page and all of some of her other works. But this is a person that is one of those pen and paper type of people we need to sit down with, pull out the pen and paper, and be ready to take notes. I don't think you need to be putting it in your computer and all those fun things we like to do. I think you need to write some of these things down. So, if I may ask my very first question to you, Barb. Good morning, and thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Glenn. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. So, here's my first question. What is it about you that we should know that we don't know? Either about you or your business that most people just don't really know.
What you should know about me, which could be an encouragement to your audience, especially those who are trying to get somewhere different in life, is that I have an extraordinary life, but a very ordinary story. I meet new people every week being in my line of work. And I see a lot of people who are almost discouraged because they don't have if you can call it rising from the ashes story, where they
Hmm.
had an extreme rock bottom or an addiction or a trauma or something that they had to overcome. They think that you can only be extraordinary if you have a significant comeback. And I'm a great example of I did all the shoulds, did all the things, ended up
Hmm.
where I was supposed to end up, but I still wanted more. So I decided to create an extraordinary life, even though I'm pretty much a very ordinary person.
Wow. When you say extraordinary life, what do you mean?
I mean that I get excited that it's workday on Monday because I wake up full of energy and I love what I do. And I'm not really enslaved like I was when I was younger, when I was more financially debt ridden, enslaved to my job, enslaved to wanting to look good, do better. I just have a different freedom and a peace about me now. And I really feel my impact much more on a larger scale than I do when I was making companies better. It's great work. Companies need to have those people in those chairs, but that isn't what I was meant for. So I just feel like my impact is a little different now. And that's what's extraordinary to
It
me.
was told to me, and I believe it, that when you work in your passion, you don't work a day in your life, and everything tends to start flowing that way. It's a shame that not too many people can work their passion, but you're blessed that you can. So I give you a
Mhm.
lot of credit for that. We mentioned in the pre-show about our feelings about goal setting.
Yeah.
So my first question to you, and I don't know if we're going to end up debating this or not, but you said goals are not the end game. What do you mean by that?
That we're really taught that if we just set good goals and set smart goals
Hmm.
and we seek out our achievement of them, that we're going to arrive where we want to, and that they're the end game, they're this holy grail or a finish line, and
Okay.
that's going to give us the life that we want. And I think that they have their place and that they are a tool to get us to where we want to go, but they're not the end game. I don't think that they can work against us. The best laid goals still are not what we're meant to be in life.
Okay. Okay. So when you say that we can achieve those goals, once we achieve them, why aren't they the end game? Because that's what we were after.
When I think about goals, I think about they are for a fixed point in time. They're finite. They're in that moment. And if we're evolving beings, they're we're designed to evolve and you want to go somewhere after that. And so there's always going to be another goal. And when does it end or how does it end? Think of it this way. I worked in corporate America for 25 years. So wonderful time of my life. I learned a lot. But I remember every year having to set goals at work. And those
Hmm.
goals were not just busy work that HR managers made us do, it was to fulfill the company's vision. It was always for a greater purpose and to make all of us better so that we could execute where the organization wanted to go. I feel that way in our lives that we need to do that more too. We need to have goals, certainly, but so that we can what? The what is the end game. The vision is the end game. What are your goals leading you towards? It's not the goal itself. Goals are usually gets. You get something. I
Okay.
like vision. It's goals will get you to a place you want to be.
Okay. Then I was going to ask this a little bit later, but you brought it up.
Okay.
Goals are actually gets. Set a goal. So what you I'm see if I'm coming down the right track with you.
Okay.
We set a goal, we're actually trying to get something. And is that wrong?
It's not necessarily wrong, but it's misleading if we think that's if I get that corner office, if I get that job, if I get that car, if I lose 20 pounds, if I pay off this debt, that I will be happy. So goals are often they're not growth, they're gets. If you can turn them into something where you're growing and evolving to something bigger, if you want to lose that 20 pounds, it's so that you can what? Is it
Get
because
that.
you want to
Yeah.
keep up with your grandkids? Is it because you want to overcome a health scare? It's so that you can what?
So you can get some kind of joy, some kind of satisfaction out of it.
Right.
Okay. This is where it confused me because if the bottom line is to get some kind of joy or satisfaction, you're still trying to get something. It just may not be a tangible, excuse me, it just may not be a tangible get.
I would agree
So,
with that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
okay. All right. So that, I mean, I was reading that as like, okay, but people try to get things. But you're saying, and I guess what I'm starting to get from you is that as we set these goals and try to get these goals, this is what's creating burnout. And I want to ask you about this too, because
Right.
you talked about burnout, overachieving corporate women, but let's talk about burnout and overachieving, because I want to draw a little line for the corporate woman part of it. But the
Okay.
burnout and overachieving, tell us, how does that happen and how do we avoid that? Let's talk about that for a second.
Ooh, it's something that I think happens to so many of us, and
Hmm.
we don't really know it when it's happening. We just know it when we wake up and feel that way one day. When
Hmm.
you're just spinning all the plates and trying to take care of all of the details, and you find that you've lost yourself in the process. I know I was there. I was burned out, but I didn't really think about being burned out. I was just too busy doing. So I was making sure things happened at work. I always made sure that as an employee, my job was to make my boss's job easier. But as a boss, it was also to make my employees' lives easier. So I was always in a caretaking capacity. And then I did that for my family. I did that where I volunteered. Every aspect of my life was just taking care of things. So I think not everybody is a hyperachiever. That can be a way we self
Yeah.
sabotage ourselves.
Yeah.
But for me personally, and a lot of the women that I work with, it's our value piece, it's our identity piece. And so that's how that's we're performance based. You always want to overperform, outperform, you always want to get better. And it's it's almost like it becomes a habit and a way of being, so it's a little hard to dial back from that, and it's hard to
Okay.
let go of responsibility and have somebody else take care of things. I can't tell you how many women in particular, I can't see the men's side of it, I know how a little more how women operate, but having to rearrange the dishwasher because their husband loaded it wrong. Just
Right.
we
Yeah.
take on more than is necessary, honestly, and then because we are the keepers of how everything works, we burn ourselves out having to maintain that.
This will be my next question to you because from the outside looking in, it's tough. But with all the work that I've personally been doing and been paying attention to, the little sister, a daughter, and a mother, I see some of the struggles that may take place. But isn't it just more? Let me ask it this way.
Okay.
What are the challenges that you think corporate women face that corporate men don't face? And we're including, we won't discuss pay inequality
Right,
or
right.
the old boys network, but what are some of the challenges you think a woman, especially a woman who has a family?
I think that I have most of my career was in very male dominated spaces. I have learned so much from how men navigate the world that I think women honestly could learn more from. We all have our unique contributions, but men are very good at knowing their worth, and they can say no to projects at work. They can set firm boundaries, and they're confident in what they're able to contribute.
Hmm.
It's not tied up necessarily in their output, it's in their intrinsic value. Women are not as inclined to understand and be able to demonstrate their intrinsic value. So they think if they do more of the doing, if they're the go to person, if people can't get things done without them, then that's where their value comes from. And
Wow.
they burn themselves out in the process.
Okay. Okay. So is it just the idea of knowing the value? And I asked that because I had a gentleman who a few months ago was saying that truth of the matter is men of less color know their value and willing to ask for a higher salary, even though they may not know how to do the job yet. while the rest of us are trying to prove ourselves. So, is it just the ideal value that draws a difference in why we need to to make it an even playing field? We need to pay more attention to it. Is it just value, or is it something else? How we value ourselves?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's a big one. There's a lot of symptoms that women portray. I think the value and the identity is an underlying cause for a lot of those symptoms. But you just mentioned a great example. Women don't tend to apply for jobs if they don't think they can already do the whole job. They are less inclined to stretch. They're also less inclined to negotiate salary, negotiate a raise. Just have some of those skills are not as widespread. And I think it's because we worry about how we are going to be perceived. Or what if we are told no? How do we save face? Uh, men,
Hmm.
the men that I've worked with anyway, this, I don't mean to,
Generalize, yeah,
generalize,
yeah.
but the men that I've worked with have been very good at being able to let those things roll off their back, and it's business as usual, and they don't hang on to um, any anything negative that they might have perceived out of a conversation if they didn't get what they
Gotcha.
wanted.
I got you. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Then that makes sense. So tell me, do you think that it's a different way of goal setting that a woman might do than a man might do, just based upon those issues we talked about? Will they set their goals differently?
Do you mean in the workplace in particular or just in
Yeah,
life?
let's. That's a good question. Which one do we want to look at? Let's go with the workplace. Let's go with the
Okay.
workplace.
I think women, in my experience again, it's we have a tendency to set safe goals. And especially following the SMART goal model, I know that you are very familiar with SMART goals yourself. You talked about it, but women really take that achievable and realistic portion of SMART goals into we take that to heart. So it has
Mhm.
to be something that we can track, that we can look at our progress. We feel really good when we check that box and we stay within realistic. And we don't do as well when it's scary or if we might look, I can't believe you're going to try for that. It looks a little crazy. We want to be known, yet we don't want to make waves. So it's like being
Wow,
invisible and being seen in different ways.
that's a very interesting way to put it. We want to be known, but we don't want to make waves. That's a pencil me down moment right there. We want to be known, but we don't want to make waves. That's well, and does it vary that much from the personal life to the professional life?
It depends on how much your professional life has taken over your personal life. Didn't in that part in that phase of my life, in that season, most of my goals were professional. And come January, we've all designated a certain time of year to set goals. We don't have a
Yeah.
time of year to finish them or implement them, but it, it would be just like everyone else. Oh, this will be the year I lose 20 pounds, or this will be the year. There might be something financial, like I really want to pay off that one debt that's looming over me. But I didn't ever really set goals as who I wanted to be as a person and what I wanted my life to look and feel like. It
Wow.
was everything had a professional answer to it. That job, that degree, getting one
Yeah.
more step ahead was where my goals were focused,
Okay.
really.
Okay. So there sound like you're saying the distinction here is personal lives. We don't really tend to set them. Our
Right.
professional lives, we set them, but we set them as safe goals. Okay. Okay. You said something that also I jotted down for a question. We start our goals, but we don't finish them. Why?
There's a few reasons that I typically see with people I work with. One is that we are microwaves and not crock pots.
Oh, okay.
Culturally speaking,
Yeah, we pop, pop. Let's
yeah,
go
we
here.
want everything fast. And to really move the needle in life, it takes small, consistent steps. And when you look within a short period of
Mm.
time, you don't see results with small, consistent steps. So I think just if you don't get microwave results or really crockpot results in microwave time, we give up. And finishing goals is a very different skill set than sitting down and starting them or envisioning them or developing them. But a lot of things happen during implementation that we are often not equipped to deal with.
Mm.
So that's one reason,
Okay.
the
A lot of
microwave
things
versus
doing
the
it.
crock
Yeah.
pot.
Okay. No, I was just saying because I was thinking implementation. We don't see we see problems. Let me rephrase that. We don't see the problems while we're in the implementation stage that will stop us from doing it. The
Right.
microwave. Okay. Okay.
And that's usually where self sabotage shows up. And
Oh,
we're not usually aware of our own self-sabotage, but that's where fear might show up, or self-doubt, or if you get resistance from outside factors. It could be family members or people who frankly benefit from you staying exactly where you are. Let's say you want to get healthier, but your family no longer likes the new cooking that you're doing, and you get this resistance. So I think even just some self-sabotage during the implementation phase and being unable to handle roadblocks is another reason we don't finish.
when you say roadblocks, what's the typical roadblock in the personal life that we run into? Is it family? Is it the loved ones that are in the way?
It can be.
Can
For
be.
some people, their family is their biggest cheerleaders, or their close friends are their biggest cheerleaders. There's in other cases, if the people pleasing is a high self-sabotager for an individual, he or she might really struggle if they tell their mom what they're planning on doing and their mom kind of, is that really a good idea? Or they're very sensitive to feedback. So a lot of self-doubt shows up
Mm,
in the interim, or even just the inability to stick with it when things aren't happening. It's not linear. There's usually ups and downs and struggles. And I
yes.
think just sticking with it and having longevity, and what do you do when you want to give up? Just not having those skills or someone in your corner that supports you and helps you navigate through that. We're not taught that in school.
But I'm wondering, you said it, so I'm just going to push a little bit more.
Okay.
I'm wondering, where do we develop these habits of not valuing ourselves enough, or not, or looking for the microwave results when we actually should be doing it in a crock pot, allowing other people to affect where we want to go? Where do we learn? We had to, my mind only, we have to unlearn what we came here with in order to take that perception. So I'm just wondering, where does that begin with? I'm three, four, five, first year of high school. Where do we begin to say, okay, I got to buckle under and give in to what everybody else is after?
Wow. It's probably a little different for all of us, but if anyone comes out of childhood without that built in, then I want their parents.
Yeah.
Because and if it's not parents, it's society. And aren't we always all trying to fit in? And we're trying to, maybe it's a female thing to not make waves. We want to make sure that we aren't rocking the boat, that we're well received, that we look good. Everybody wants to be
Yeah.
picked for the team, chosen. So you don't be different, don't look different, don't think different. And I think I can't tell you an age because I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, but think that we start getting messages at a pretty young age about what's normal and what's not and how we fit
What's
in.
acceptable? What's acceptable in behaving was
Right.
not.
Acceptable is a great way to say it.
Drawing out of the lines is not acceptable, while drawing in the lines
Right.
is. So I just wonder, because what I what I think needs to happen is that we need to get our leaders to realize that they got to help other people set powerful goals and be good corporate citizens, so they can teach their kids and their kids can teach their kids. We're not going to change all of our worldly humanity problems without
Right.
people like you who say, okay, listen, ladies, let's get this together. You have this thesis that kind of runs through a lot of your work, and that is that we're chasing the wrong thing. We're chasing after goals. We're chasing after approval. We're chasing after the wrong things. Can you? No, I'm putting words in your mouth. Can I say it that
Mhm.
way? But can you give us a little better feeling for that? How you would actually say it and why?
I think your assessment is correct. I think that those are not bad things to chase. I think we've maybe elevated having our professional lives be that end game. If we achieve what we want to achieve, then everything falls into place and everything is going to be perfect. But we don't ever stop to consider, for example, maybe taking a step down in title one level might actually bring the peace into your life that you need, or maybe working part-time instead of full-time, and you might lose some status with that, but we internally cringe with that a little bit. What I always like to have people think through is, how do you want to feel when you step into your
Mm,
workplace and you look at your calendar, and what does your environment feel like? If you like to work very autonomously, why are you trying to get to the corner office where you're going to be in meetings and in interruptions all day long?
okay, love that. Okay, okay. Wow, that's so. In other words, people are not looking at who they really are.
They're just looking at the ladder, and the ladder is not a bad thing, and achievement is not a bad thing. I was there. I don't fault anyone or demean anyone for wanting to grow in their career. And contribute more. It's, are you looking to influence your industry and your organization? Is it title? Is it status? Is it a sense of security? For me, it wasn't power or anything like that, but I needed that as a sense of security. So to make me feel comfortable that I could
Mm.
take care of my family in any
Yeah.
circumstance and
Yeah.
be independent that way. So
What
it's,
when you sit down, whether it be at an office or with one-on-one, and don't want you to go through the whole things. I'm sure we don't have time to go through the whole thing, but could you
sure.
give us a high level thought process of how you're getting people to set goals that are worthy?
We actually, we start by looking at their whole life and where everything is at, whether that's professionally, whether that's in their relationships. They might have a big lofty goal over here, but if their finances are a mess, we might have to set some goals there first. So we look at what is most out of balance. How do they look at that, think about it? How does it show up in their life? And how is it holding them back? But then we go from life balance, if you will, to true vision casting. What we
Mm,
do is we look at where they are, but where do they want to be? And to me, vision is really the GPS for your life. It's, if you could wave a magic wand, how do you want life to look? Where do you live? What are you doing? Who's with you? And when we set their vision, goals just feed into the vision. Goals are just a way to get them there. They're
okay.
baby steps in the interim, but vision for me is the end game. And so I help them see it differently and see what is actually possible for them.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So the really the process is then is to look at what's weak,
Yes.
where is
Yes.
out of balance. So you're not a
Yes.
fan of this idea of start with the strength and build upon the strengths, or
It depends. We need to know what our strengths are, but to me, I think of strengths as our tendencies and where we might have more self-discipline or things that will help propel us to get where we want to be. But I want them to acknowledge that you might think that your goal might be over here, what you want is over here, but this other thing, unbeknownst to you, might actually be holding you back. So we consider that. We consider where everything is.
okay,
And
okay.
if, may I be transparent about my own journey in that?
Yeah, yes,
So
absolutely.
when I first went through a similar process before I changed careers and got certified and became a coach, I went through a similar process of setting my New Year's goals, and I thought that they were going to be financial and professional in nature. And when I went through the process a different way, which is the way I do it with clients now, I was in a season of life where I wanted to lose about 25 pounds. And many of us are there. Let's just
Right.
be honest about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But what I didn't realize was how I was speaking to myself
Oh,
unconsciously or
okay.
subconsciously and how that was holding me back. So we had to go through exercises to actually pull that stuff out. And if I may be vulnerable, mine was I didn't think I was worthy of my husband thinking I'm beautiful because of the current state I was in. That was blocking any other
Everything.
success in my life because
Yeah.
it affected how I showed up. So I had to park the other goals and deal with that. So that's an example of what might come up when people look at this a little differently.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing because that is probably more true than not. Because I think a lot of us, well, more true than not for everybody. So I think a lot of us don't value ourselves to think that we deserve the 25 pounds off or the $25 million
Right.
a year. We have to work really hard when that's already part of us. All we have to do is kind of let it
Right.
happen. I want to ask you though about something that you and I both seem like we read a lot, but there's been some pushback of the last year or so. The statement of "fake it till you make it." What do you think about that statement?
I honestly have mixed emotions. I
Mm,
do I do see the point in not faking it and dealing with what you need to face. I've heard the alternative is face it till you make it. And I do like that. But there's something to be said for not waiting until you feel completely ready before you do something. And I personally think for women in particular, that's a lot of what holds us back. We think we have to be done before I said that incorrectly. Done is better than perfect, but we're trained to do perfect first and to make sure we're completely ready and we know exactly how to show up. And faking, I don't know if I like the word fake it, but I do think that we need to advise people to just stretch themselves anyway and try something new and be comfortable
yeah.
failing.
Okay. Okay. That's good, hate to say it, middle of the road kind of thing for it
Yeah, did
because
I avoid the question?
yeah, you didn't avoid the question, but you stayed safe just in case someone's listening to you and they don't think you should use it or they think you should use it. It's a tough thing. I really think it's a
Mhm.
tough thing because I think it's so mistaught and so misunderstood. I really do. I think act as if, fake it until you make it, those are all just feelings. They're not
Mhm.
saying fake it by pretending you're somebody else and running around like the boss. It's the feeling inside of you. You need to fake it till it becomes real. But that's beside the point. I'm just curious about that because there's been a lot of talk about that of late where people
There
are just
has.
saying, oh, I would never fake anything. Well, okay, you fake it every day. I don't know why you're saying. When you do your speaking, I guess I'm trying to point now to a little bit of a different crowd.
Okay.
The folks who are speakers out there, and I notice this a lot, they are running around talking about being authentic. What would you train a speaker? What would you say? Okay, set your goal for that particular speech you're getting ready to give, or for not so much how many speeches you want to give a year, but the one you're getting ready to give right now. How would you help them become better at delivering that message through your goal setting, your goal thinking process?
If I were speaking to another speaker, speaking is a different skill set, and it really good speakers know their stories, and their
Hmm.
stories are how they got from where they are to where they were to where they are. So there's an element of here was my pain point, here's where I am now, and allowing your audience to recognize
Ah,
themselves.
okay.
But that to me, being authentic isn't really representing yourself honestly and showing your story and being transparent with it, but also showing a way out, if you will. This is how I dealt with that. This is how I overcame it. Even if your story is ordinary like mine and not a huge comeback, it can
Yeah,
be some that can be of service too, because a lot of people feel that way.
that's what I've noticed. And when you said that at the very start, and it dawned on me at that point that when we are looking as speakers, we all think we have to have this
Mhm.
tragic life come. And in some cases, it does play for the audience,
Yes.
but sometimes we make it up too much. So, yeah, don't mind telling stories, but a couple people know the galaxy a long, long time ago. This is a story. So it's different. But the reason why I draw, say, let's talk about speakers, because the same thing happens to the CEO, CFO of a company, COO of the company. They have to be real with the people. They have to be authentic, but they can't be authentic because they're in a position of leadership. And to be authentic sometimes means I don't feel good, so I'm going to take the half a day off. No, because I have to meet with the stockholders or the stakeholders or all those folks, and I can't show the weakness during that time period. That's what I think causes burnout. What do you think?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. You have to show up for a different level of responsibility, certainly when you're in an executive position. And there is less forgiveness for taking some of those needed breaks, having a mental health day, or just saying, We're not going to do this meeting right now." So, yeah, there's a certain unwritten code in business of how you have to show up as a leader. And
Mm,
you can have a version of authenticity where people know you and know who you are and know that you care for them without sensing weakness and fear
no,
because
okay,
you don't want
okay,
to
yeah,
project that. You want to
right.
project strength and stability for your organization.
Okay, I like that. That makes sense. That makes sense. I want to ask you though, and you're maybe a little bit prepared for this question, but what are you doing right now to help? What are you doing right now to actually get women to want to get out of bed and get to the job? What are you doing right now to help
What
leaders?
I'm doing right now besides
Mhm.
private coaching is really my flagship, like the best way that I can reach and really serve women because there's classes and there's events. I've held retreats, classes, I've written a book. That is great for in the moment when you need a quick shift, but the impact is in the implementation. So where I really impact and serve is walking a lot alongside women in their journey as they're trying to implement going from the life that they've created that they is missing a few things to where they
Mhm.
really want to go. But I always believe in service. There's always every good entrepreneur should have a way to give without having everyone sign up for a major program. So I always have smaller classes that people can participate in that are no cost or things they can download or tools because not everybody's ready for that leap either. I'm always available for people who have my book. There's many times that someone will just text me or reach out to me and we'll just answer a quick question on one of the chapters because it's really a workbook. So just
Oh,
meeting people where they're at is really important to me. Meeting people where they're at.
tell me a little bit more about your book.
My book, I have this is the old cover. So I have it here, but will this show up backwards? It's called Becoming You,
Okay.
a 28-day guided journal. I had to change the cover for two reasons. I kept getting just criticism really that this is not me. And my comment was always, I am not Oprah. I don't go, I'm on the back.
Okay.
And I was looking for a generic woman that all women could relate to, but there's not a single woman that represents all of our diversity or ages or all of us. And so I had to take a picture of a person off the cover because not everyone sees themselves in that. And now there's a butterfly. But the book is really a workbook. There's 28 chapters. So it starts with some thought disruptive lesson and you work through the lesson. There's journaling that you can do. And there is a prayer in there. If you're a person of faith, you can take it as a prayer. If not, you can state it as an affirmation or a
Mm.
declaration and look at that to incorporate that into your life. When I first published it, I thought it would be a 28-day journal because I took my training and knowledge and dumped it into this book.
Oh,
And
okay.
when I
Yeah.
started coaching women through it, I realized that the pace is not a 28-day pace. It's more like 28 weeks. But
Okay.
once it's published, you don't change the title. So it does have a
Yes, you do.
disclaimer in there to
Yes, you
have
do change the
grace.
title. Okay.
Yeah, just take it slow
Yeah.
and take it at the pace that you need to and let it serve you. But it's meant
Okay.
for people to work through a thought disrupting idea one day at a time.
Okay. Hold it up again. So I don't think it was reversed, but it's
Oh,
becoming
nope,
you.
it wasn't. Our camera's good.
Okay. So becoming you, a 28 days. Okay. So now is that an Amazon book or
It is on
available?
Amazon, or if people are on my website, it's just barbmonson.com, easiest
Okay.
thing in the world.
Okay.
Then there's always links to the book or any other things that you can download or things you can check out.
And those will all be in the show notes for those of you who, once you get finished, just go to the show notes. We can take a look, and those will all be there for you.
Thank you.
So I want to also just ask you a little bit this coaching that you're doing.
Yes.
Okay. First thing, before I ask that question, are you thinking, would you consider expanding out? Because what you're teaching may not really be easy to teach it with a group. Or do you think you just need to stay with the one on one coaching? Or could you possibly move that out to larger groups?
I think do you mean as far as a group setting, almost like a class based?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It can be taught. It's more of I've done some teaching in a class style, but it's usually a singular topic. And it's mostly for people who maybe aren't ready for the coaching or haven't decided that they want to invest in, "Well, I'm going to work on something for 6 months." It's that microwave mindset, correct? I want
Right,
something
right.
today that I can just go and do. The problem with that is even now, but within 24 hours, people forget two-thirds of what they learned. And the vast majority of it is gone within a month, which is why I believe so much in the one-on-one programming. The people in my one-on-one program are also invited to a group call that I do once a month where it's all clients, everyone can bounce things off each other, share ideas. So there's almost a group mastermind effect. But I love teaching. I love the energy in a room. I love group work. So I absolutely would look for
Yeah.
more of that as well.
Okay. I am the type of person who prefers to be in front of a group versus one on one coaching, so I don't do it. What is the advantages of one on one coaching, do you think, for the participant?
The advantages of one-on-one are that someone knows that every 2 weeks they're going to be accountable and they can stay on track, and if they're stuck, they have someone in their corner that has spent time with them and invested in them so that I will know the strengths and weaknesses of who I'm coaching. I will know where they might get tripped up or what their tendencies are, and they can be a little more personal and vulnerable than they can in a large group environment in a at a single time when you're just dunking in and leaving again.
Mm,
So the group certainly has its own strengths, which I think that there's always a place for that. And I love participating in that. But when people need more inner work, it's consistency and a little bit at a time that they might not get in a single class.
okay, all right, that makes sense because when you look at the Kirkpatrick model for training, it seems like a lot of ways you get a lot more done in a one-on-one session because 6, 7 months down the road, when the emotional impact is worn off, they're getting better
Right.
still. But in the classroom event, you have that 1 day or 2 days, and that's it. The way it's been working. I want to ask you because I know this Move Your Mountain is your website, right? Move Your Mountain.
My website's barbmonson.com, but
Bob.
my business name is Move Your Mountain.
Okay. Tell me about the program you have, the vision casting program that you have on that Move Your Mountain.
Absolutely. It's something that I work through with all my personal clients. For the individual who just wants to check that out or get a taste of it or understand, okay, how do I go about setting a vision without committing to a huge program? This is a recorded class that anyone can download, and it walks them through with a workbook, a process of thinking about their goals differently, putting a vision in front of it instead, and taking a really deeper assessment of where they're at and what might a little bit of what might be getting in their way, thinking of it differently. So I do have that just as a thank you to you for having me, Glenn, and for everyone in your audience. That's available as a free download. There's normally a cost, but if you go all the way through to the checkout and put in the coupon touchstone, one word touchstone,
Okay.
then
Yeah.
that will take 100% of that fee right off of there for you.
I appreciate that. I'm going to do it just to see how it fits in. I got to be honest with you, Barb. The hardest thing to do is for me to remain quiet. I'll let you sure because we're both really aligned on this goal setting process. And we have a little bit different titles. I've noticed that and different names for things. But it's really important, I think, for people to have that vision in front of them. And that vision kind of points to who you are. And I think that's really important. I think that's really important. I want to ask you something else. And I know we've already went past our time that was said we
Oh,
talk, but I appreciate that. I appreciate it, but I do want to ask you one other question.
okay.
So what questions did I not ask you that I should have asked you?
Oh, that's a tough question. Because honestly, you are such a good host and interviewer. What question did you not ask me? Maybe, what is the result of working with me?
Okay, that's a good question. So what is the result of working with you?
The
We know
the
why
res
we should do it because there's a lot of pain going on right now. But what's the
Right.
result?
For something like coaching, people don't think of it as very tangible. It's not like taking a college semester course and you see a specific outcome, but the specific outcome is really you get changed in the process. You believe different things about yourself. And we do use goal setting within my program. So the women that are in my program will get to the end of 6 months and they will have a very clear vision. They will have all the tools of dealing with those obstacles along the way, but they will also have hit one of their major goals that gets them on the way to their vision. You aren't going to completely overhaul your life in 6 months. That's a bit too much of a microwave, but you can get a really big quick win that trains you and your mode of operation to continue on towards your vision without me. My goal is that people they don't need me after 6 months. They're equipped.
Let me move on.
They're equipped to move forward. I'm there as a backup, of course, but they're equipped. They've learned what's possible for them, and they've really created a life that they love.
That's interesting. That's interesting because most coaches, trainers, they want to hold on to these clients forever. Some of my
That's
good
not
friends are, yeah,
empowering, though. That's not empowering.
that's not empowering. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. That's part of the reason I don't do individual coaching either. But
Right.
but I'm just wondering what's in it for that person. So 6 months down the road, they maybe are to the point now where they can start developing these visions for themselves. But if I spent 1 month, the first month, what's in it for me there? What should I look at for just 1 month?
The first month, we really get through a lot of that life balance, and that's a buzzword that we're never really balanced, but it's really just a kind of a total life assessment of all the different
Right.
areas and just how's it going. We really get into how's it going. We really get into what is it that you wake up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat about, and we get into setting a vision. we also get into what are the big areas of self-sabotage because we usually are self-blind. That's why we don't
Mm.
coach ourselves. I can't coach
Yeah.
myself. I have a coach too. So
Yes. Yeah.
what are the areas that we might not be aware are holding us back? And we start getting into that after the first month.
Actually, that's a really powerful argument for why we need coaches because we wear blinders.
Yes.
And to be able to discover those things. So that alone is a powerful argument. I want to say thank you very much. Don't cannot say how much aligned we are because this is your podcast. I'm hosting it, but it's your podcast, your chance to teach us. So I'm glad you have a lot of great ideas, bring a lot of great vision forward. Vision, no pun intended, but a lot of great vision casting kind of things coming forward. And I think it's very powerful that we do that. Again, let me just put this back up here on the screen real quick for those when we do the clips on YouTube, they'll be able to see that so they can get that. But it's also in the show notes there too.
It is, and it's also just a quick button on my website.
Oh,
If you
okay.
just go to barbmunson.com, they can certainly find it
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Glenn, you're a
Good.
very
Good.
gracious host. I really deeply thank you for having me on your podcast today.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I think we will be talking again because we got more to cover.
I hope so.
Okay. Thanks. Oops.